I'll skip the attendance. It looks like we're all here. And hope everybody had a great holiday. Why don't we start off, Kevin, with what's going on at CPCNH? And I just want to give everybody the good news that Kevin has been elected vice chairman of the board of CPCNH.
Thank you. Actually, well, thank you, Counselor, but the existing vice chair, Chris Parker from Dover, he had to resign for work, heavy work responsibilities, so they asked me to fill in if I would do it at least through April when there's the full board. So at least through April, we'll see. So tough to say no to when they ask you. So. All right, so the update on CPCNH is, I think, all quite positive and very busy. I'll just quickly go through and can expand on anything you like. The CEO search is in full steam ahead. The firm that was hired, we meet with on a weekly basis, and I expect we're going to have candidates to begin interviewing later this month. They're reaching out to lots of folks and have been done preliminary interviews on their end. And last week we saw a short list of candidates that they're probably likely going to bring forward, but very talented, experienced folks in this space from all different parts of the country, and we'll see where it goes. But we expect the interviews to start later this month, and the goal is to have a CEO on board for this organization by March. Okay. Since the last meeting, two important contracts, one in particular, have been signed, that the Ascend Analytics, who does all the portfolio management for the organization. They've been actively doing their work, but the contract had not been pushed over the goal line. That contract was signed and approved by the board back in mid-December, and that's the whole kind of suite of portfolio management, and it also brings some credit support to the table as well to help CPCNH through the initial period. And they're not a load-serving entity, being a registered participant in ISO New England to buy and sell. And so the thought all along was we were then going to hire another load-serving entity. Ascend is doing that. They've gone out to bid, and they've contracted with Calpine Energy, who we're also using for retail services, but it's a whole different division of Calpine. So Calpine is the load-serving entity for the organization and working under the direction of Ascend, and that contract has been finalized as well.
Kevin, can you explain what a load-serving?
Thank you. I was going to ask the same thing.
Well, my friend Ben probably is better than me, but you need to be registered with ISO New England as a load-serving entity to buy and sell power within the regional network. And CPCNH is not a load-serving entity. They may be at some point down the road once they have more credit worthiness and can register to do so. Ascend was not registered in New England to be a load-serving entity, but Ben, I don't know if you want to kind of add
I brought this up just so the public can understand.
Oh, okay, sure.
People listening, some of the jargon we're using is not always familiar to people.
Yep. Thank you.
I just was curious to understand the mechanics of the relationship there. So Ascend is going to provide guidance on what the portfolio structure should be, and then Calpine will execute, or?
They'll execute the transactions, but all the decisions around procurement will be made by Ascend and approved by the Risk Management Committee of CPCNH, but the actual execution of those purchases will be done by Calpine because they're a registered with ISO New England.
Calpine will do settlement as well?
Yes.
Thank you.
And they do the customer billing.
it's a whole different division of Calpine.
Oh, okay.
That's doing that. They have different divisions. And so the two are kind of unrelated, but they're under the umbrella of Calpine. And CPCNH had no involvement in the selection of Calpine as the load-serving entity. The Ascend went out to bid and selected them. Okay. So those are the two contracts that have been signed since the last meeting. And several very important governance documents have been just recently approved, and there's just been a boatload of work going on this front. One that I've sent out to you and is also, I think Stephanie included in the agenda for today, and it's kind of three policies combined in one. One is the energy risk management, and then there's the rates, customer rates, and then the third one is reserves, the customer reserves, or financial reserves, excuse me. And so those are all packaged into one policy. And when I talk about reserves, initially the buildup of reserves is to build kind of the financial stability of CPCNH. They're kind of joint reserves, and there'll be so much money to be on hand to cover so many days of operation, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days of operation. And then once joint reserves are met, kind of excess reserves then flow to the member communities to use for their purposes, be it projects, perhaps to kind of dampen rate increases, et cetera. So there's kind of three different buckets of reserves, but there's a policy that is the three things that I just mentioned. Okay. That has been approved. That was approved back on the 15th. Yes, Ben?
I'm looking at page 22 of the rate policy.
Yep.
And it says that the rate, product, content, and member elections section, that there'll be 4 rate products that CPCNH plans to offer.
Yeah, that is part of what's called the complete service bundle. A community doesn't necessarily need to take all 4 of those.
Okay.
And there's going to be 2 default products. One is a default product that's equal to the renewable content of the utility default service, which right now is around 25% or so, I think. And then there's another default product that has a higher renewable content of 33%. Some communities may decide to make their default be the higher renewable content, but also give residents the opportunity to opt down to go to the lower, which is comparable with utility default service, to save money. And then there's 2 rate options that are higher renewable content, 50% and 100%. And they gave them the 4 kind of nice little marketing names. Granite Basic is the minimum renewable content of 23.4. Granite Plus is the 33%. Then Clean 50 and Clean 100. So those are the 4 products that will be available to the member communities.
And if the member communities decide through their surveying and public outreach activities that they may want to offer something slightly different or more options than that, how does that work?
My understanding, Ben, right now, out of the gate, these will be the 4 products.
That's what we
These are the
get.
4 products.
But they can choose a mix of those products?
Yes, they could have, my understanding, Peter, is they could have all 4, or they could just have 1.
Right.
So, or anything in between. Right. And I know that these documents are, you all have, lives and jobs and whatnot, so you may not have read these, but these policies are not a difficult read. They're pretty, you kind of get a good feel for things once you have an opportunity to go through them. Okay. The one that's a little beefier is the cost-sharing agreement. That was just approved last week, and this is the rules of the road for how all cost will be equitably shared among member communities, using kind of causation principles. And this document has received a lot of attention by the board members and the consultants, et cetera, and it's gone through a variety of iterations. And it was finally approved this past the 27th. They had a special board meeting. And it covers like general administrative costs for the operation. The bulk of the cost, obviously, is around power procurement. And then there may be direct cost if a community is working on a project, per se. You know, if Portsmouth was working on a project, we wouldn't expect Exeter to be paying for it. So the cost-sharing agreement kind of lays out in great detail how that will all work, and the reporting and the auditing of it, et cetera. And it has now been approved by the board. And one thing that changed originally, well, they kind of unbundled it. So there's an attachment when you look at the cost-sharing agreement. It's an attachment C, and it's called the CPC&H Complete Service Bundle. And what that means, it's all the services that CPC&H will provide a community in terms of the oversight, the consultants, and obviously the power procurement. And out of the gate, communities, that is the choice. You can select the complete service bundle. When a community signs that document, that's when they're committing themselves to cost once they start taking power. So signing any of these other documents, the reserve document, the rates, the cost-sharing agreement, those are governance documents, and a community signing them doesn't commit them to any cost. But when you sign the complete service bundles, it's like signing a contract for a service. And once the power starts to flow, then the communities will be paying for that service out of the small amount that's built into their rate structure. Okay? So all the communities that are going live here soon are going to be signing all these documents, including the complete service bundle, and then be ready to go live. And I want to, because this is like happening here very, very soon. The process really starts in like 3 weeks. And so the 12 or so communities that are going live in wave one, they have to get before their elected officials and get everything signed and buttoned up. And so there's a lot of angst right now to get all this done, because these documents were just finalized, and now they have to get them before they're in their respective towns and then cities, and then be prepared for go live.
Kevin?
Sure, Peter.
Okay.
Yeah, Peter, and then Peter.
Go ahead, Peter.
So I think I saw in the send report, is there a time frame that once they sign the complete service that they have to stay with it?
A community?
Yeah.
It's basically a 36-month
Okay.
deal, but there's exit ramps right up to the point you start taking power if a community gets cold feet, and then there's a lot of verbiage in the cost-sharing agreement that talks about how communities can back out earlier than 36 months.
Okay.
And how they may be on the hook for some financial commitment because power has been purchased for them and hedged out over 36 months.
Right.
But if there's other communities coming on board that perhaps that power could be used for, then a community might be able to back out without as much of being on the hook.
Great.
Assuming communities also have built up reserves. Reserves could be used to exit out of the contract and pay their, what is owed. So there's a lot of text in the document that talks about the commitment, but then also how a community, if they so choose, could get out of the arrangement going forward. Sure.
Yeah, Kevin. John, did you want to?
No, I was just saying, Peter, you had your hand.
Oh, thanks. I didn't know I was being watched. So, Kevin, I just wanted to ask you if you could kind of summarize a little bit the philosophy of how the cost sharing is going to happen. For example, I would assume there is some, like you were saying, fixed costs. There's some variable costs. Are these costs going to be allocated based on the number of residents participating in each community, the power they take, the businesses different from the residents?
There's a variety. I don't know.
In general, I'm just looking
Yeah.
for, what is the philosophy, how
There's,
you
it
think
depends
it's
on the
fair?
cost, the approach, and I'm just going to go to, and Stephanie, we could also pull that up if you want, the cost-sharing agreement, if it's
Tell me
not.
what page I can do
Yeah, I'll
that.
get you there.
This document is one of the things at the end.
Let me just get to it here. There's a table in the cost-sharing agreement that it lists out various forms of general administrative costs, the power cost, the direct cost, and depending on the category of the cost, there's a different formula for how the costs would be calculated to go back to the community. A lot of it is around load, but there's some other different examples of that.
Is there like a big difference between residential customers versus
No,
businesses?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so. Trying to think where it is.
Page 50. Is it this energy portfolio risk management?
No, it's in the cost-sharing agreement, which is at
Page 15.
15, thank you.
You know, and if I'm not mistaken, the
Oh, here it is, yep.
administrative
it's
is
in the front end.
divvied up based on your percentage of the power used.
Yes, yes. Yes, so thank you, Counselor Kate. On page 14 of the cost-sharing agreement, there's a table here that goes through the 4 or 5 categories of cost and the allocation methodology.
Somebody said 14.
That table there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see much of it is, many of them are tied to load.
Well, that's zoomed.
John, this is page 110 of the whole meeting packet. I could share it, but everybody here can see what I have up right now. I don't know if you can.
I'm not able to see it, but I did read it this afternoon, so.
Okay.
Yep. So, so that,
There's a question.
oh, sure, I'm sorry, Allison.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure when I should ask these, but I was just wondering if there's anything in this that either the city legal or financial people need to look at?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So I know Counselor Tabor, I think, plans to have all of these documents brought before legal, and then eventually they have to be brought before the council.
Right.
We fortunately here in Portsmouth have some time on that end, but yeah, each of these documents needs to get approved by the member communities. And there's a PowerPoint deck that they're finalizing that are being used by the Wave One communities that kind of gives a high-level summary in a PowerPoint form in conjunction with the documents.
If I could add,
Sure.
we put these in because they have been approved, so they're now official policy. And they're relevant, they're very relevant. But our sequence, our order of events, so to speak, is, you know, first we get our aggregation plan completed after the public hearings, and then we take that aggregation plan to the city council, and they authorize us to move ahead. And then we would look for, and then we would be in a position to commit the city to these different agreements. So, you know, if we get the EAP drafted, we have our public hearings next month in March. We go to the council late in the spring. You know, that puts us in a path to be ready to move ahead with all of these in the early summer, late summer, something like that. Would you, am I correct on that, Kevin?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think there's any harm sooner rather than later to start to get city attorney, you know, up to speed and you know, taking questions and so forth. But, yeah, and just as a committee member here in Portsmouth, I think for all of us, it's helpful to start to see, you know, this stuff taking shape and the details behind it, because there's been a lot of rigor, I think, by the coalition in terms of this. I just wanted to, hey, Counselor, I'm just passing around those few pages that I passed on to you today. I just want to talk to him here in a sec quick, and I'll wrap up. So the other thing that has been completed that is was particularly helpful, and it was in the scope of their contract, was Ascend was asked to do a technical business review of CPCNH, kind of the viability of the whole thing, and they have completed that review with positive results, and you have the full document that was sent out, and there, as Counselor said, there's a couple sections there, the executive summary and a few other sections that are kind of give you the high-level snapshot. But they did a pretty rigorous kind of scenario analysis and simulation around like 100 different price points and different levels of load and cost, et cetera, in great detail, and came back and is showing that the launch, and the focus is really on Wave 1, so you'll see it's optimistic about Wave 1 going live. That isn't to mean, you know, Wave, for us, it's less so necessarily. It's just the intent of this was we're launching a new operation, and should we go forward with this? And if you review the document, review sections of it, it's quite positive in terms of the viability of CP&H, the ability to produce savings on a going forward basis, as well as building up substantial financial reserves for the member communities. And so the one document that I sent around, PowerPoint, says technical assessment recap. I mean, that's like the 100,000-foot view of their takeaways from their 60-page document, or however many pages. And it kind of goes through, you know, I won't bother running you through this. You can read this as well as me, but just gives you a snapshot on kind of Wave 1, the benefits, the savings, projected savings, and then the outlook going forward over. They did a 5-year review out to 2028, and it came back solid. And they were pretty conservative, I understand, in terms of their assumptions that they were working through.
They really did seem to emphasize that being in Wave 1 was beneficial, just in that the timing for purchase of the power was going to be probably pretty good.
Yeah, right now, yes. So, I mean, if you looked, I don't know if they had it in this one here, they were saying the median forecast for over the next 36 months for Wave 1 communities is 19% lower. And then for all, and if you looked over to the right side down toward the bottom, they're saying the median forecast benefit out over to 2028 is 10% lower. And that doesn't necessarily mean that rates are going to be 19% lower or 10% lower, because there's going to be a combination of savings going into rate reduction as well as savings going into building up financial reserves.
Although they do say 10 million in customer savings.
Yes. Yep.
So yeah, that may not equate to 19, but still pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. But when the percentages they're talking about isn't necessarily because the assumptions that they built into the analysis there too, that for go live for Wave 1, that there'd be a 5%, that the rates would be 5% less than utility default service, or 7.5%. So those are the two right now that were on the table in their technical analysis. But then the balance of savings are designed to go into reserves and to build up the financial reserves to make sure we can support the operation through, perhaps some harder times. All right, so the takeaway from the analysis was, I think, comforting to members, and the folks from Ascend are pretty darn impressive and have really rolled up their sleeves and are very committed to the coalition. And I mentioned at Councilor Tabor, I think at any point in time, if we wanted to have one of their lead guys talk to at a committee meeting, they'd be happy to do that, to take questions out of it.
I just follow on to say, I really liked what Ascend found in their modeling. They found that we'll have a price advantage versus not just the default rate, but they projected a price advantage versus the broker plans. So going back to the fall of '21, when we did all that due diligence, there really is an advantage to the portfolio approach, I think. And the end of the Ascend report was a really kind of motivational and inspiring part about local renewable energy projects and how much CPC&H over the next 5, 7, 8 years could be creating and supporting local renewable energy projects, and those come back to our customers as savings. CPC&H, as it gathers more towns, can be a voice for getting the legislature to get rid of some of the artificial limits on local renewable megawatts that are produced. So I thought, not just from the point of view of cost, but also from the point of view of participating and driving an energy transition, this report says we're on the right track.
Yes. And also the report is designed to help build membership too, because that's one of the levers that aids the business case going forward. We're up to 27 members now. When Portsmouth joined, I think we were number 19.
Yeah.
And there's probably double that are actively looking into CPC&H. So
What's going on with Manchester? Because I know that they had received all the information not that long
I have not heard anything more around where Manchester stands. Maybe Clifton and others know. The big city that I had heard that was Concord, that was perhaps more interested right now than Manchester. So I don't know. So.
In the assessment, it lists the second wave being April of 2024.
Yeah.
Is that the earliest they think we're going to have, or is that kind of the latest case scenario?
Yeah,
for
so
2022?
I believe Portsmouth would be able to go later this year if the market was advantageous and can produce savings. I think what they're modeling is historically April and May is the lowest energy cost month. So to be able for a wave to go live with the best savings, it's that second quarter of the year. So they're modeling it that way. But they had always talked about, the coalition had always talked about a spring and a fall. And I don't think there's anything prohibiting a community, Portsmouth, from getting ready as soon as we can, and if the market is favorable, going live. We might not have the exact same savings had we implement it in April, or if we implement it, but whatever the rates become next April or May, we'd get those. But there might be a 6-month period where we're not going live with as much savings as Wave 1. I would say with Wave 1 that it's not all about price, because there's a lot of moving parts right now that are going to get tested live, right? You're going live with customer service, call center, billing, a notification process to customers, being available to customers at your call center, having reps that are trained, that know what to talk about. I think we'll be in good shape. We will be in better shape 3 months from now, 6 months ago, 9. So we could go live with a rate that's lower, but then frustrate residents with a support to that, customer service support or billing or a notification process that's choppy, and have folks say, I don't know, I don't know if it was worth the 5% reduction in my bill. So me personally, I'm comfortable getting those things all shook out and working well on top of whatever the rate savings is. I think it'll provide a better experience for our residents. Just my 2 cents. So, but yeah, I think we could perhaps be ready, go live later this year if the market supports it.
And I think they weren't saying that the next waves were going to have any less. It was just they were really looking at the first wave. So that is what it sounded like to me.
Yep, yes. And if you notice, there was a little bit of a caveat around Nashua, if you look in the document.
Yeah.
They were just a bit delayed in their putting their EAP together and being ready, and they may or may not be ready, and they may or may not decide to go with CPC&H right at this point in time. So there's a little bit of uncertainty around Nashua, whether they're going to go live April, maybe a little bit later, or maybe they're going to delay a little bit. And they're a big load contributor, but one of the things you read in Ascend's report is, with or without Nashua, this is a very viable proposition. We don't need Nashua to be successful. We would certainly like their load and to benefit their residents, but it's not necessary for go live. So you might see that they might be going live in June or May. We'll see. Okay. So that's the technical assessment. You can take a peek at that, but it's I think comforting in terms of the plan that was put together by CPC&H is really playing out, I think, effectively. So and finally, the last thing I wanted to mention is just this glide path to go live. Not that we're going live, but this is happening, and it's not out a few months. So the other document says Wave 1 procurement rate setting process. So right now, if you're a Wave 1 community, you're getting all your documents up through your governing bodies, right? The documents I mentioned. And then later this month, on January 30th, Ascend is going to come to the Risk Management Committee of the coalition, and they're going to give an update on the market. And they're going to, we expect, tell us it's favorable for go live, here's the data to support it. And the Risk Management Committee will, I assume, bless that, right? And right up to that point in time, a community could back out. So even if you sign the complete service bundle, you're Durham, and you've signed the complete service bundle, right up to that point where Ascend's giving a market update to the Risk Management Committee, and if they hear some things that are giving them a little bit of agina, they can say, they could tap out and say, we're not going. So they could exit. And you have to have an authorized officer for the community. So eventually we'll have to, decide who that is for Portsmouth. Okay. So the Risk Management Committee gives the go-ahead to Ascend now to go out and procure power. And they'll do that quickly. And they're going to then come back and on February 6th to the Risk Management Committee, and we're going to then start deliberating around rates based upon what comes back. And there's going to be a rate-setting process based into those 4 buckets that I mentioned, okay? And then those rate products are then going to be available. It's going to be a public deliberation. You'll come back, the rates will then come back to the community, and I'll just pick on Durham, and come back and say, okay, here's the rates. Which do we want to pick all 4? Do we want 1? Do we want 2? Which do we want for our default rate, et cetera? And that then will go, they approve it. It then goes to the full board on February 16th of the CPCNH. The rates get finalized, and then we're good to go. And all the communities that are in Wave 1 will start their notification process for their customers, the hearings that have to take place, and will be on a glide path to go live for April 1st. Okay? So, I mean, here we are, whatever it is, January 6th, and, you know, tangible things happen on January 30th where this whole process starts going up to then a go-live on April 1st. And there's going to be kind of paralleling this kind of public education, communication, marketing plan, so communities are getting a little bit of benefit from a PR standpoint around all this going on. So that's where stuff is right now. Peter?
Sure.
Thank you. Kevin and John, has there been a lot of discussion on the board about the current financial crisis situation worldwide and the volatility of energy costs? The reason I bring that up is because I spoke to Don Kreese today, the consumer advocate, and his comment was that he believes that Eversource will come in with a lower rate in February of 20 cents from the 26 cents it has today. Now, people seeing that from the outside are going to say, geez, you know, rates are going back down again. So I don't know if I want to change when things are going in the right direction. Usually people behave the opposite that they should. So when they see rates coming down, they still say, well, you know, someone's asking me to sign on to something that might be more expensive. Are we aware of the optics of what might be happening in the energy markets that are so volatile, and how that affects maybe the psychology of people in these communities? Or do you think that people have figured out that you know, we're offering a better product, we're offering local resilience and independence, and maybe that's something that can be sold easier than just the rate?
Well, and this isn't my area of expertise. I don't know what my area of expertise is, but you know, I would expect that all the distribution company rates in New Hampshire are going to ebb and flow up and down. You know, and they always, you know, after we had the Arctic, whatever it was, in 2016, you know, that 15, 16 was crazy period. Then things have been kind of sleepy since then, and now things have been crazy. And I think the coalition's model and the portfolio management model is that even if Eversource were to have its next round of default service be 18 cents, that they are confident. And if you read Ascend's analysis, they feel very confident based on the risk premium that's built into the default service auctioning process that isn't built in, that isn't reflected here, that they feel confident that they're going to be able to beat rates by a 5% margin going forward. That's what the analysis is saying. And Ben, this is your space. You can talk to it better than me, but
It sounds pretty reasonable.
yeah.
And to that point, wouldn't at least at the consumer level, wouldn't they have the rates right in front of them when they made that decision?
Well, we're gonna sign on before
For
that.
the community.
Yeah.
Right, so if the community decides to sign on before then, that's
Oh,
fine.
right,
But
when
then
it
when the
comes to you.
consumer goes to decide whether to opt out or not, they're gonna say, if I opt out, I'm gonna lose money or save money, and they can make that choice when the time comes. Also, so
So that comes to the timing of when we implement too, because what's going on right now for Wave 1 is they waited till the distribution companies came out with their default service rates and announced them in December for go live February 1, so they know the price to beat. They can look and see what kind of headroom they're going to be able to, the coalition's going to be able to get. And so that whole process, though, will start up again so the next round of rates are in August. So new rates will be available in like June for the August timeframe. So once rates become known in June, then the CPC&H will know again the price to beat and potentially the availability for a Wave 2 community to go live, you know, in the early fall, knowing that it's going to be below default service.
So it could hinge on that, and also the other thing you brought up about how many issues are they running into with the launch of the Wave 1.
Yeah, and I don't mean, I think it's going to go reasonably well, but all I'm saying is there could be some hiccups with launch outside of just the rate.
Yeah.
That as a Wave 2 community, that'll have shook out by the time we're ready to go. That's
Yeah.
all I'm saying, yeah.
So I'm wondering, when we're talking about, you know, Wave 1, Wave 2, it seems like there's going to be designated times when we're going to be able to do this versus a sort of a rolling enrollment kind of thing. Is that the case?
That's my understanding, Allison, but I don't want to speak out of school. I think I'd like to have some of the experts at CP, the BSNs of the world, comment on that, or get some input from like a Samuel Golding on whether or not there's a kind of a rolling any month, or it's, because my understanding initially was that it was twice a year, and it was tied to when the default service rates are known from the distribution companies, and then you know the price to beat for your go live. But so.
What I'm hearing,
Yeah.
I thanks Allison for that question, and I think in your question, I'm hearing that maybe Kevin and I should talk with Ascend and Henry and Clifton to see if we could go in the fall. I think that's optimum for us. I'd love to go in the fall if we can. But I think that's a conversation we should.
Yeah. And my understanding is we'd be able to, once we know the price to beat, that we would be able to beat it, but it may not be, you know,
What's happening in April?
what's happening in April.
Yeah.
But, so.
In the interest of time, I think we ought to
Yeah.
move on.
Sure.
And next up, we've got a logo selection.
Yes.
Thanks to Allison, we have 4 different looks. Stephanie, can you put those up on the screen? And I thought the best way to do this would be to just see how many votes each one gets. I think they all have their different personalities. The bottom right is what was supplied by CPC&H, and that's the City of Portsmouth logo kind of stylized. And the other 3 are from Allison. So I was going to ask Stephanie to just take us through each, and let's do a preliminary vote and see what we get.
Do you want Allison to explain why there are 3 variations, what the thinking was?
Sure.
Well, actually, there can be a lot more variations. So like, if you like the color of the sun in one of them and not in the other.
Right.
There's at least 2 different patterns regarding the river. There's one that's just a sort of cartoon version where you can see it going off. And then there's the other one that makes it look like it's more tidal-based, which we are. Peter had remarked that at one point there was an old power plant on the river, and that these buildings sort of resembled that. And the type of sun you choose can be different, but these were just sort of, I've been working on a logo for Portsmouth Climate Action, and so there's another one over here that's a little bit of a variation on these. You know, I don't know, but if we just want to look at these and say, that would be great if you had this color going on or whatever.
I really like the title one, because I think that's kind of an element of Portsmouth. I like that or the one with the white sun that shows the river, but the tidal one, I think, reflects the tide.
Which one is that?
The bottom
One of
left.
the-
Top right.
Bottom left?
Yeah. And the ones with the sun, they're beautiful. The only thing I took away is like, almost like we're like a solar, we're a solar initiative. Obviously, hopefully we have lots of solar, but we're kind of more
Yeah.
than that. So I like the sun without the rays.
Yeah.
And I like the tidal feature there. I think that was pretty cool.
I had a question. Is there any benefit, or is there any concern or preference from the city to stay consistent with the city logo?
I don't think so.
Okay, just checking.
I would
Not
ask,
that I'm aware
I
of.
would ask the city councilor.
Yeah.
Yeah. City councilor, sorry.
No, I mean, we haven't even discussed it at city council, right? So I
Yeah.
don't think there necessarily is. I think that if there's a recommendation that comes from this committee,
Okay.
And the other, I don't know if you've seen the other cities in the coalition, they vary. It comes to mind that Exeter's version has the bandstand, which I don't think is in their city seal. So,
Exeter City Seal is the fish, the alewife.
that's right, of course.
But the bandstand is the symbol of the city, so.
So that's what
Can I just,
their power.
can I just ask, how many of you have a particular favorite? Just raise a hand.
Yeah, yeah. But,
I'm not, I'm voting no, so I'm not gonna.
Oh, come on, Peter.
I'm not, I don't know, I will if you want me to, but I think I should decide.
So, since it looks like everybody has a favorite, maybe, does it make sense to talk about why? I mean,
Yeah,
Kevin
yeah,
did,
yeah.
so maybe
Well-
the others should.
yeah, so I like the title one that Kevin chose too. What I don't like so much about that, though, is the sun. It could look like some kind of explosion in the background. So it's maybe too much.
Spoken as a nuclear physicist.
Yeah, I mean, that isn't quite Seabrook direction, but it's,
Newington Station.
it looks like, it should, if it's going to be sun, I think it'd be better if we can really see that it is the sun and not something
Not a
nebulously.
mushroom cloud.
Yeah, that's the only thing, but I like that the best, I think, from all the logos.
Well, I like that one the best, and I actually like the sun that way. I
Ah.
agree with what Kevin said regarding the rays and just
Yeah,
being
yeah.
solar, and that is, the sun's setting on the water there, and
Mm-hmm.
it looks very large in the sky sometimes when you look out over the water, and so that's why. And these are actually, it didn't come out very well in this image, but these are actually rays, but they're all
Oh,
very
yeah,
tight.
okay.
You know what I mean, the way it spreads.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the title one as well.
Oh, I see. Now I can see it.
Sounds like we've got some momentum.
I concur. I like the color palette the best. I like the balance associated with the land and the water. I like the notable landmarks, and I think that the texture on the water is appealing.
Tim Rooney, any comments?
Yeah, I like that one too. And I'm okay with the sun. I didn't see the, but yeah,
It's fusion.
I like that balance and the North Church and the bridge.
How do you do that, Allison? Just curious, how do you make these?
This was all done with PowerPoint. I don't
Oh,
have
yeah?
a graphic arts package or anything. This was all, yeah, there's lots of little tricks you can do
Wow.
with PowerPoint, so.
It's nice. And I have the other communities here, and ours would be the nicest.
Of course. Okay, that's settled.
Okay, I'm a little handicapped, I can't see the screen, but Stephanie, is that, give us a direction?
Yes, do you have the packet so that we're to look at the sheet, or I can share the screen for this, I think.
I think I remember which one it is, it's lower left.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let me
yeah.
try to, can you see that on your screen? No,
Yes,
Yeah,
oh yeah,
okay.
that was my favorite too.
okay.
No. I like getting a bridge in there.
So how's this work, Stephanie? This just goes to Henry or?
So, yeah, I guess he's waiting to hear he's waiting to get our logo. I also mentioned to Counselor Tabor that by selecting the logo tonight, I will incorporate it into the postcard so that as
Yeah.
we start talking about the survey, we'll have that in there.
Great.
Yes. So,
And
Allison, if you could send it to me separately, I don't think you did.
Sure, yep,
Thank you, Allison.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice work.
yeah, thank you,
Yes.
Allison.
thank you.
We, when Henry sent his, the lower right, we noticed that the ship is adrift.
Coming in.
Really good in.
With the tide.
Let's move on to the survey. And in your packet, we saw the two prices from the two vendors. Stephanie, you want to
Yep.
take us through that?
There we go. Let me get it. So we were advised by the purchasing department that a project of this amount doesn't need to formally go out to bid. She did, however, request estimates she tried to request them from 3 different companies, never got a reply after several tries with Eastern Marketing. She got the 2 that you see, one from Spectrum, one from Southport. And the biggest difference here is that Southport is able to give us 13,812 residents and businesses in the 801 zip code. And this Every Door direct mailer it's address specific so that everything is addressed individually, and you're not going into a package of a bunch of mailers and just put in your post box or mailbox or whatever. So it's a postal service product. And both of the postage estimates are based on about an 18 cents per item cost. So those are the options.
So where we left off on the survey was we had the postcard complete, and we have the survey set up online. There's a QR code on the postcard,
Correct.
as well as a link for those who want to type it in on the PC. And this was the last piece that we needed to implement. We just needed a vendor to get the postcard out. I've spoken to the city manager. We're okay with this amount of spend. You know, the survey will engage the public. And when we get that wave of engagement, along with perhaps some of the publicity around the towns that are going live, I think we'll get good participation when we follow up with a public hearing in February. I think, Stephanie, would you, well, I would say one last thing. I do think it's valuable to have the businesses get this, particularly small businesses. Large businesses, we know, probably have their own broker plan that they've negotiated. But, you know, a lot of the smaller businesses, and if you know Portsmouth's business composition, we're a giant pyramid with hundreds and hundreds of small businesses at the bottom, 1, 2, 3 person enterprises, and a few large ones at the top. So I think there's value in having both business and residential, but I welcome other people's point of view on that. And what do you think the best vendor for us would be?
I don't know about Spectrum, but Southport's a Portsmouth company too, which is nice.
Yes.
I had a question about why was the number lower on Southport? The number of,
Get it again.
I guess, mailings. They're-
That's an actual, I believe that Southport is including Newington. Let me just check.
Oh, the zip code.
Yes. Yeah, the difference in number is the zip code. The Southport is specifically 801.
Although, wouldn't it be bigger if it was, because Newington's our zip code too, aren't they?
I don't remember.
Yeah, they are. Well, I know they are, but that's fine. It's probably not significant. And so it's that, I guess my real question is, it's the residents plus businesses with Southport, so it's more mailings for Southport. Even though it looks like it's less here, it's more because it's the residents and all the businesses.
Right.
Oh, great. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, my years at the newspaper, we always figured about 11,000 addressable housing for residential.
So is it just going to be like resident at 380 Greenleaf Avenue, or is it going to be Allison Tanner, 380 Greenleaf Avenue?
I don't know that, but I will certainly find out.
But it sounded like one wouldn't even have the street address, and the other would.
Yeah, I can clarify from both of them exactly where the number comes from.
I think for my money, Southport's a local company. They're gonna add the businesses. So I was inclined to go that way. If it were my choice.
Where's Spectrum located? Are they,
Not sure.
I don't know. I thought Southport sounded familiar, and I looked them up. They're in Islington. Not sure about
Yeah.
Yeah,
Spectrum.
Southport's over by Hannaford.
yes. I think it's great to use
Especially
it.
in Manchester.
Oh, Manchester?
I think I would also go, I mean, I like the idea of using a local company
Yeah.
if we can
Yep.
use a local company.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, me too.
More sustainable too.
Yeah.
Right, less trucking.
Yeah.
Yep.
Counselor, do we need a roll call vote because it's an expenditure?
Yeah, why don't we, I'll await a motion to recommend to the city manager that the Energy Advisory Committee survey be done by Southport,
So moved.
as quoted to the city.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Or abstained? Okay.
Good.
And I'm glad my old company didn't bid, because then I didn't have to abstain. Okay. So, that would put us on a path to, as we had initially said in our timeline, put this survey out into the field in January. Maybe it would be a good idea, Stephanie, just to put that postcard back up again.
Sure.
Can we do a quick gut check?
I will do that. John, can you see that?
I can see that.
Okay.
Our logo's going to make it look so much nicer.
Right.
Right, with the new logo.
That's right.
Yes. So do we want just the new logo, or do we want the CPC logo and ours, or what combination?
What do you think, folks?
Is there one on is it two-sided? Is
Yes. So the back is, one of these days I'll sort out which button. So the back is black and white with the QR code.
And that's where the address goes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why all this white space. So,
Yeah, I think it's good to have both logos on there. I think we want to be both the partners of the others.
Well, which one do we overwrite with our
Oh.
new one?
Right or left?
Yeah.
I think you change out the City of Portsmouth logo for the
Yeah.
community, for the Portsmouth Community Power logo.
I agree.
That's what I would do, yeah.
I'm just thinking down the line, when people get a bill and it has a Community Power logo on it, they will have seen it before.
They're not going to
That's
get a bill.
good point, no.
They're going to get billed to the utility.
Oh, that's true. Well, in a year, is it gonna have the Community Power logo on it?
No.
Do we know what it's gonna have a different logo?
Won't have any logo
It's
at
just,
all.
it's just, your Eversource
Maybe the
bill is
Eversource.
just going to have a line in there that says, it's
So it won't have
going to
like a
say
little logo somewhere.
Portsmouth Community Power, just a typed line.
Supplier.
So it's gonna be like my current
Your same
supplier
bill.
Yeah,
list.
if you were with a competitive supplier, it's
Yeah, I
just
am.
going to,
Same envelope.
It just has like one,
yeah.
you
One
get your
line.
service through.
And it's going to have CNH's address.
Very boring.
and
Yeah,
the-
it's very
and the-
boring.
And the phone number to call the call center.
Okay.
Yeah.
so Counselor, if I may, Counselor Tabor, if I may,
Yes.
that might suggest that we are introducing our new logo and that maybe having the endorsement, the recognizable city seal says that this is a program of the city, not yet another third party. Just for consideration.
So we would do our new logo on the left and the city seal on the right?
Thinking that might make some sense. But that's, as a non-voting member here, I just float the idea.
I do think this is a great chance to put our new logo out there.
Yeah.
And you're right, the city of Portsmouth is a trusted brand, I would say.
So we would scratch the Community Power Coalition's logo. Yeah.
Well, do we just have to have the two logos there? Couldn't we put the Portsmouth Community Power logo on the upper right-hand corner of that side? I mean, it's sort of open.
I don't think there's a lot of recognition of the CPCNH logo.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can introduce that downstream,
Yeah.
some fashion.
Yeah.
So the city's on the left and ours is on the right? Okay.
Yeah.
That works.
Or either way. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Yeah, it makes sense on the left, because that kind of introduces the new Portsmouth logo with the Community Power Coalition New Hampshire, so it kind of goes together. Makes sense.
Okay. And then, Stephanie, let's just take a quick look at the second page, the flip side.
Right.
Kevin, are we 27 communities now?
Yes.
We'll have to update that.
Yeah.
The only question I have is at the end of the paragraph. Residents will be able to choose to be in the Portsmouth Community Power Electricity Program or stay with Eversource or their competitive supplier. just to kind of preempt the question. Do I have to switch to this if I've already gone to competitive supply?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was the addition, Ben?
Maybe after, or stay with Eversource.
Yeah.
Or your competitive supplier, maybe
Yeah.
even within parentheses.
Yeah.
But whatever, just to kind of give a
Yep.
signal that if you've already gone to competitive supply, you don't have to do this. Or, just so that you know that you have options.
And it's the wording, the residents will be able to choose. They're not really, they will ultimately, they can choose to opt out.
Right.
So technically it's correct, but it's a little bit of a,
It's obvious that the 22 are New Hampshire communities, right? Do we need to say NH in front of that, or is it pretty obvious since it's of New Hampshire? Or 27 now?
I think it's pretty clear.
Okay.
Okay, and remember too that the survey, the survey is dynamic, it can be changed right up to the last minute, and we can preview the upcoming public hearing when somebody finishes the survey. We can have something pop up that tells them about the public hearing coming up, or the 2 dates for public hearings.
Can I ask a question? I had been thinking that our survey would be used to help identify what the rate products would be, but it seems like it's working out that we've already got our 4 choices determined for us. I don't remember what the questions were in the survey, but do we need to?
I think they aligned quite well
They do.
with what this says.
Great.
Yeah, I know we had a 50 and 100%, and then there was your 23 cents or whatever it was. I'm not sure what that, but there were 4 choices.
Okay. So as long as we're good there, great. I just want to make sure we're not inadvertently
question.
miscommunicating.
Yeah, under the category of better lucky than smart. Our 4 are the cheapest rate, the same rate with more renewables, 50% renewable and 100% renewable.
Oh, wow, we nailed it.
yeah.
How about it?
Those are the 4 choices.
That's amazing.
Thank you. Thanks for humoring me.
So our timeline was to do this in January and then the public hearings. And I do think it'll be very valuable to see if the demand that we saw in the event in June, when we had such strong desire for renewables, if that holds up in a larger sample. It would be very exciting if it did, because then from the point of view of a sustainability initiative, this could really move the needle for us. Any more discussion on that, on the survey?
All set.
You're also going to list it on the, the newsletter that comes
Yes.
out from the city?
And we'll do a press release, all the usual communications.
Are people feeling comfortable about moving ahead here?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I am, and I'm especially pleased by the policy that discusses what the rate products are, where it talks about the clean energy and the preference for local and in-state recs. That was something that we had talked about before, and I'm really pleased to see that that made it into the policy statement.
Yeah, I am too. I agree with you, Ben. So all of this lays the groundwork for the completion of the aggregation plan. We'll talk a little bit about the public hearing dates, but I think we'd use that survey data to maybe strengthen some elements of the aggregation plan if it comes back really strong. And we could say, this is what our community wants. I did want to mention the other element of the aggregation plan we've been waiting on was the Eversource data. And in your packet, we gave you Ben D'Antonio worked up that data for us, so we could see the household counts. And true to form, it looks like nearly everybody is on the default, which again underlines the opt-out opportunity. And I just wanted to thank Ben because the Eversource data came in a pretty hard to read large spreadsheet. And he does far more complicated modeling than this, but he was a quick recap of it. So there you see it. So we have that element now, Peter, Fritz, that we can add into the document. Ben, was that complete? Did you need more? Do we need any questions answered on that?
I think we were just not entirely clear as to who was in rate class G. I think that the table that was blank in the document suggested, rate classes that align with municipal, residential, commercial, industrial, but it gave notes that you should adapt your table to what you've actually got for your constituency. And I think that was applicable for us, for our commercial and industrial. They're grouped together, but they're in small and large. And rate class G, if you look up at the PUC what rate class G means, it's kind of a default rate. And there was nothing else in the data that suggested what the municipal accounts were in. So just by process of elimination, I wasn't sure if the G rate folks was just municipal or municipal and residents or residents only, given that there's a separate resident-only customer class. So if possible, if necessary for the purposes of actually implementing the program, it may be helpful to get further clarification on who's actually in Class G. Alternatively, if CPC&H or Ascend Analytics that's doing the portfolio management, if they're comfortable with just procuring power to match what rate class G is, and it's not necessarily important to know if it's municipal or residential or something else, that may not be necessary. But if it's helpful for the portfolio administration and the program implementation, it may be worth trying to get some resolution.
I said one question. I think, Peter, Kate had sent off to Samuel one of your earlier spreadsheets that Eversource had given. And I think it made its way into Ascend's numbers here, but Ascend only has, I'm looking now, a little over 8,000.
For municipal?
No, residential and non-residential.
Oh,
It has 8,000, and we got like 15,000 here, right?
you're talking about
Roughly, yeah.
customer counts?
Yeah, you have the utility default service, you're showing 12,900, right? 12,900.
9 plus 2.6, yeah.
And,
Roughly 15.
and I'm not sure where Ascend got that data from, but I remember Samuel was trying to dig it up to get to Ascend, and it was something that Kate had given him. So I don't know if maybe an earlier version from Kate didn't have the complete Eversource numbers.
Not sure.
Yeah.
And so are you saying the municipal, or potentially the municipal is the 51,000 annual usage versus 260 on the total? That's like 20%, and our greenhouse gas inventory says like 1 or 2%.
Right, it seems
think
really heavy
that's-
for being
Yeah.
municipal, yeah. So it's got to be some of the
Business.
residential.
I think it's probably businesses, isn't it? Small businesses, non-residential.
Could it be small
I
business?
think that'd be more than 17. Oh, 17 plus 71, that still seems low, right, for the whole city?
Could it be single-family residential is R and general residential, and, or like?
Maybe
you know,
multi?
Multifamily is G? I guess we gotta dig down on that
Yeah.
somehow. Who's the best person to follow up with? Do we even know? I can see who Kate's been working with, and we can try.
Yeah,
and-
Peter Briggs, do you think that,
Yeah, I can try who we've been contacting. If you guys know someone better, I'll try that, but we'll go back.
There was a gentleman, the New Hampshire guy, who's Aaron somebody, Aaron
Aaron.
Downing, I think his
Aaron
name is.
Downing, yeah.
I think he's the New Hampshire supplier relations guy that responds to these requests.
If you don't get a prompt response, let
And
me
Aaron's
know.
in Dariush's department, Dariush Danyavi.
Yeah. The head of basic service is a colleague of mine, so if you have any delays, let me know.
Okay.
We'll get it
yeah.
expedited.
Yeah, well, they've been good, so I'll just.
Great.
But do the numbers make sense that the 15,000 or so
Total.
accounts for Portsmouth, for those of you who are close to how many,
Counts?
That makes sense. I mean,
Yeah, well, with the mailer,
Yeah, it was 12
so,
14,800.
on the residential side, yeah, it was just under 14,000.
Yeah,
so that passes a sanity check.
yeah, 22,000 residents.
And the usage, which is what I'm more comfortable with, is, it's in the ballpark.
the total annual.
Yeah.
The competitive supply customers use more than the others.
Greater incentive to migrate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
so it
all,
sounds like, we'll need to call Eversource and maybe, check in with, Ascend as well. But certainly, we could clarify the rate code G with Eversource. And Peterborough, maybe Kate could, Kevin, have you got a liaison with Ascend? We wanted to see how their data was sourced.
Yeah, I'll ask Samuel, because I think Samuel took what we gave him and passed it off to Ascend. So, but maybe, Peter, you could have Kate check with Eversource first, just to,
And is that our
Any other
earlier
questions?
data, not our later official request?
I think that was the earlier data,
I
yeah.
think so,
And then
yeah.
we had a subsequent,
Yeah, the-
more formal request
yeah.
that went to them.
Yeah.
And that's what this is, right?
That's what this is, yeah.
Yeah.
If we could tie out the discrepancies by next month, that would be great.
Yep.
And this is in the packet? I didn't see that
Yes.
went out, okay.
It's page 92 of the packet.
Okay. Because I may just push this to Samuel and send this spreadsheet just to get them a little closer to,
I can send it to you separately, as Ben sent it to John. if you
okay,
want.
great.
And they should have the actual response, because this is a summary of that, right?
yeah, this is a summary.
But I can get it to you if you don't.
When you say they
There's a
should,
right number, we just have to be sure we
Well,
have
it
it.
went to CPCNH as well.
oh, when Eversource responded, they copied CPCNH?
They were asked to. I'm
Yeah,
sure they
okay.
did, yeah.
All right. All right, thank you. Yeah, but if you could send that to me, Stephanie, that'd be great.
Sure.
Okay. Last on the agenda was aggregation plan next steps. We've talked about the survey and the public hearing. We had a February 9 public hearing set, and we probably ought to set the date of the second one as well. And that could be a week later, that could be 2 weeks later.
I think it has to be a month, right?
Does it? Oh, that's helpful to know, yeah.
I think.
So maybe that's why we had our meeting dates of Feb. 9, and I think we had a March date.
Yep, March 9th.
Oh, okay, March 9. So maybe that's our second hearing date.
What is the cutoff date for people to enter the survey?
PUC.
Good question.
Just wondering how many responses you think we're going to have by the February 9th meeting.
No, we don't have a date on the postcard. I don't think we have one on the survey itself, but I can check and add whatever you want.
I would think 2 weeks is adequate. Would that put us right up to Feb. 9?
Probably.
Please respond by February 9th.
Well, if you're going to message it to the council at the public hearing, I guess you could just have a, yeah.
Live.
Here, we just got the results. Hot off the presses. Maybe the 8th would be better.
Yeah, maybe the 8th.
The 8th is probably a Sunday, though.
Is it?
Well, if the 9th is a Monday, usually it's a Monday, I don't know.
No, the 8th is a Wednesday.
Oh, so they're doing, meeting on a Thursday, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, it's not a council meeting night.
Not a normal council meeting.
Do we have an in-home date?
Oh, it's just a public hearing,
Just
it's
a
not a
public
council
hearing.
public hearing. Oh,
We will, as soon as we give the green light to Southport, I'll get the in-home date.
Okay.
If they go out by the 18th, that should give people easily 2 weeks to respond.
Yeah.
More than 2 weeks.
And Counselor, we're going to check on Henry Herndon for at least the 9th, right?
Yeah, I did ask Henry about that. I haven't heard back from him.
Okay.
Let me just check again.
So we'll just, because we need to kind of work around his availability.
Yeah. Stephanie, let's confirm Henry before we have copy in the survey
Okay.
document, the online survey about Feb. 9.
Right.
Okay.
And there's a standard deck, right, that we have.
Yeah, I
It's in
think, is
the-
that the first document we
Yeah,
had?
you included it. There's a standard that needs to get populated with our, just,
Right.
there's a few placeholders. But that's the PowerPoint presentation that they're using for the public hearings.
Right. Yeah, so this is that, and it was sent as the PowerPoint, so we can fill in the blanks. I can fill in the blanks.
It's a
Yeah, I
bunch
think he'll
of
fill
slides.
in those blanks when he comes and does the public hearing, is part of the presentation.
Right, with our logo.
With our logo.
Yeah, I think he's expecting us to complete the deck.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like
So-
this. This is very informative, actually. This
And-
deck, yeah.
And consistent with the graphics we've been showing people.
Yeah.
so this public hearing that is in the procurement, wave 1 procurement is, so we'll have to do another public hearing when we get to our go live?
Yeah, when you go live, as part of the notification process, you have to do a final public hearing. So there's 3 in total.
Yeah.
In talking with Kevin, we thought, let's just keep moving along our timeline, so that we're in the best position by midsummer. And working towards, I'd really like a 2023 implementation if we can do it. And it'd be tempting to slow down, but, I think if we keep on our timeline, we're ready for the best outcome. So that was our thinking.
It'd probably be early summer, too, you know, if you backed up from the dates. You know, we'd probably be going live in September if it's a fall. I'm just kind of thinking about how the rates are available in December. So I think, given the time clock, we would probably want to be ready in June timeframe, I think. Have everything buttoned up.
Okay, just around the table, thoughts on, are we on the right path? What's key to success? I'll start with you, Stephanie.
We'll have the marketing components ready. We're in line with our communications plan. I've been very gratified on our behalf by the PR that this program is getting. I think that helps our messaging a great deal. So,
Super.
thanks, John.
Peter?
I really appreciate all the work Stephanie's been doing. But we're plugged in and we'll keep moving. I think looks like we're on track to be where we want to be, so it's good to hear.
Kevin?
It just reminded me, Stephanie, they're doing like public relations training for the Wave 1 communities.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
And I think CENH is supporting that. So there's a bit of a training program that the Wave 1 communities are to help sell things. So eventually, you know, we'll have that. And I'll just keep this committee posted over the next few weeks as Wave 1 communities get closer, just to kind of let you know that things are still moving along. If anything comes up of interest, I'll just drop the committee a note.
I should add on the Clean Energy New Hampshire piece, we got authorized to join Clean Energy New Hampshire as a community, so
Yay.
we'll be members, so that might help our getting that training.
Great. And you know, they are supporting member engagement, so we have a contract with them to work with Henry on member engagement.
Laura Cook?
I think we're really in a good place. Things are proceeding along as expected. I'm excited to see how the rate setting goes upcoming. It'll be nice to know kind of where the first wave is headed. But I wanted to say, you know, this is the thing I get the most questions about as a counselor. Not emails, you know, people aren't emailing me saying, we need to do something about this. When I'm walking down the street, the thing that my neighbors ask me about is community power. People are excited about this. So I think we're on track.
Thanks for your help and work. Peter Somsich?
Yeah, I totally agree with Councilor Cook. And I think also that in some ways this worldwide energy crisis has helped us too, because it's focused people on what can I do locally for myself, energy-wise or otherwise, for climate change. And here we are, we have a program that's actually coming at people and saying, here, this is something you can do. And you can do it locally, and you'll benefit from it, and you'll feel, and our young people who have been involved in all kinds of activities will have an opportunity to probably come up with new ideas for us to pursue too, as a power community. So I think it's really exciting, and I thank everybody, especially Kevin and John, who've been doing a lot of work on behalf of our group here. But thanks to everybody. Yeah, I'm very excited about it.
Ben?
When I first saw the project schedule, I was a bit intimidated. And I shared with you my concern about the need for community engagement and public education. And some of the milestones I thought were relatively ambitious. And what it appears like is that several initiatives are moving in parallel and are coming together nicely. And I think that the public outreach efforts and the communications plan, we're in good shape for that. The due diligence that Kevin's doing, I'm really impressed with the work that he's been sharing with us. I think that the analysis that the vendor has provided appears pretty sophisticated. And so I'm pretty excited. I saw Councilor Denton when he, before, at the beginning of the meeting, and several years ago, he and I worked together on the Renewable Energy Policy Plan, and we talked about things that could really make a difference. And at the time, we talked about, can't we just become our own power company? And I explained to him how complicated and expensive and challenging that is, but that this is better than that. We don't have to own the poles and wires, but we're making a meaningful difference in the supply portfolio. And I'm really pleased and excited and optimistic about the trajectory, the pace, and the status. So thank you to all of you that have been working really hard on this.
Yeah, so I feel pretty similar to Ben. And kind of, thanks, Kevin, for all of your work. And I think for this committee, and I think it will go beyond the committee, the level of knowledge you bring to us, and then, by extension, out to the public and to the council, I think gives a lot of people, will help a lot in building confidence and just, we know what this is all about because you're right in the thick of it. And it's really exciting. I think of Bert Cohen and, how long he's been at things and feeling the same way. Like, this is really substantial. Like, been involved in a lot of things, but this is, like, to move as quickly as it has and to have so much impact, real impact, but also I think just energizing everyone. It's really exciting, so thank you.
I think that we've come together really well as individuals, sharing our different areas of expertise, and that it has coalesced to move this product forward. I think that's a really good thing.
Okay, and I'm just so grateful to everyone. Everybody's got expertise and skills they brought to this, and we'll keep moving. Do we have any public commenters?
We
Stephanie?
we have no public in attendance, either live or Zoom.
Okay. Well, we'll engage them with a survey. That's how we'll.
I mean, we have 3 surrounding communities that are in wave 1, so I would imagine there's going to be a fair amount of PR that spills over from those communities and, seacoast.com and et cetera. So we'll get some residual, I think, benefit just from Rye, Durham, Exeter are all part of wave 1, so.
And Dover
Yeah,
too, right?
you bet.
No, not Dover.
Oh, not Dover,
Okay.
oh.
If there's no other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you,
you too.
Counselor.
Thank you. They're in wave 2.
They've always been waved through. They just signed on early, always.